Welcome back to Views with Hughes, Culture and News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, Bob Iger and Disney's latest fiasco, courtesy of Bob Iger and his leadership. That's right, we're talking about Moana 2, a film that's left audiences scratching their heads and different critics, sharpening their knives. Now, if you wonder why Bob Iger and, Disney decided to just go ahead and hold a review embargo until just 2 hours before its release in North America, let me tell you, the reason is pretty obvious now. We're going to break down, the different reviews, also the fallout and what it all means for the future of Disney under Bob Iger's guidance, or as I call it, misguidance, depending on how you look at it. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So we're going to also start with that embargo with Bob Iger. You don't hold back the reviews unless you know there's something wrong or something to hide, and Bob Iger clearly knew that this was going to be rough. Now, the first reviews trickled in Moana 2 started off at around, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly isn't terrible, but as more critics weighed in, that number started to slide down to 71% and then 69%. Right now, it's around, the edge of right, and I mean, probably gone up by now, but it's not a good look for Disney, especially when Bob Iger has made it clear that rebuilding Disney's reputation is supposed to be his top priority. So, why that decline all of a sudden? What's wrong with Moana 2? Well, to understand that, we just need to go ahead and take a look at why Moana is just like is important to the franchise for Disney and even Bob Iger. And to that extension, the original Moana released in 2016 was a massive success, not necessarily in box office numbers, but in cultural impact. And here's the thing, in 2023, years after its release, Moana became the most streamed movie of the year. And no promotional push, no new content, just audiences rediscovering it and loving it. And honestly, that speaks volumes, but this isn't just a brand, it's a phenomenon. A lot of kids love it. Some parents love it. I don't. And let's be honest, it has good colors, tropical vibes, and a heartfelt story. Blowing out Frozen out the water. And Bob Iger knows this, which is why it's baffling that he allowed Moana 2 to be pushed out like this. But there's also a reason about what made, the original Moana so special, because that's where the real failure of Moana 2 becomes clear, and Bob Iger needs to know this. Now, the first film wasn't just another princess movie. It was just a tale of empowerment, empathy, and resilience, and Moana's journey wasn't about, being saved by a prince or defeating an enemy through brute force. She started on a traditionally masculine hero's quest, conquering, battling, and trying to prove herself, but that didn't work. Instead, she succeeded by embracing empathy, deeply feminine strength, by restoring the heart of Te Fiti, excuse me. Moana had healed not just the land, but also broken relationships that caused the chaos in the first place. Now, whether Disney and Bob Iger understood the psychological depth of what they created, I mean, who knows? But it worked and seemed to have worked brilliantly. But then there's Moana 2. And where do we start with this? See, Bob Iger looked at this beloved franchise and said, you know what? Let's turn it into a TV show for Disney Plus. Oh, wait, we're short on Thanksgiving movies. Let's scrap the show and slap together a sequel instead. And when I say slap together, I meant that's what they did. Who did Bob Iger and Disney task to actually create this film? A studio in Vancouver had zero experience making a feature-length films, and that's like asking a high school band to headline at Coachella. Now, it doesn't stop there. You see, they didn't even bring back Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy who's behind the original unforgettable soundtrack. Instead, they got replacements who frankly couldn't even fill those shoes. But I mean, this is Bob Iger we're talking about, and Bob Iger figured it will all work out because, well, Moana is basically such a strong brand, right? Wrong. You see, critics have been rightly brutal, and rightly so, and Alison Wilmore from Vulture didn't hold back, saying a real movie would give its protagonist something to continue to wrestle with, but Moana 2 isn't a real movie. Dig. Now, when the critics who typically go easy on Disney and Bob Iger by extension are this harsh, there's a serious problem. And let's not forget the audience reactions. Different parents out there walking out of the theater saying that the story feels rushed and it's hollow. Even kids are noticing. Now, one little girl, as WW put it, said it was bad and stuff. And I'm guaranteed that it's like a lot of kids out there who's saying that they're skipping over a lot of parts. But the target audience are pointing out that the plot holes, you've got the big problem on your hands. And, Bob Iger is going to have to go through that. But it's not just about one bad movie. This is a symptom of a much bigger issue at Disney under Bob Iger. Now, for years, Disney's been treating its most beloved franchises like disposable assets. Got a gap in the schedule? Slap a franchise on it. Need a quick win at the box office? Rush out a sequel. It's a short-sighted strategy that prioritizes immediate profits over long-term brand health. And Bob Iger himself has been at the helm of much of this. Now, yes, he was gone for a bit, but he was still there, and the cracks in the empire are bigger than ever. But then there's also the production of Moana 2. Because it's just a case study in how not to make a movie, and this sequel was just rushed. It was like Frankenstein's monster of mismatched pieces, and Bob Iger greenlit the project as a TV series for Disney Plus. But when the theatrical schedule needed a quick fix, it's repurposed as a feature film, and the result, a story that feels like 10 hours of television crammed into 2. And key creative roles were just shuffled around, and the whole thing reeks of corporate panic. Now, this is what happens when storytelling takes a back seat to quarterly earnings, and Bob Iger has to own that, And let's not also forget about the music in this movie that I've heard from a lot of reviews, or the lack thereof. One of the highlights of the original Moana was that his soundtrack that was made by Lin-Manuel Miranda. His songs weren't catchy to people. They were, part of the story. But for Moana 2, Bob Iger and his team decided to go ahead and cut corners, bring in less experienced composers that he could easily control, and the result, a forgettable score that fails to capture the magic of the original. Now, music is just a part of what makes Disney's films so memorable, and by neglecting it, Bob Iger has done a disservice to the Moana legacy. Now, I'll be honest with y'all, I didn't like the first Moana movie. I tried getting into it. It's just not me, And this is a guy who likes a lot of, Disney musical stuff. But then there's also, another issue with Bob Iger as well as the competition, because guess what? Moana 2 isn't releasing in a vacuum. You see, there's also Wicked, and it's shaping to be apparently a lot of people like it, but where Moana 2, it feels rushed and shallow, and Wicked is maybe it's supposed to have some sort of deliver of kind of emotional depth and spectacle that audiences are looking for. Bob Iger should be worried, because once Wicked hits theaters, or since it's already in theaters, it's pulling in audiences that Disney desperately needs. But then again, there's also issues that Wicked is having themselves, and it seems like Moana 2 may be underperforming in the long run. But like they got the costs and stuff in the movies with the making in money, that's based on the nostalgia of Moana, the first movie. But it's going to even raise more questions about Bob Iger's leadership over Disney. So I mean, what happens next? Well, Bob Iger and Disney are hoping for Moana 2 will have a strong legs at the box office, but that seems unlikely. Early projections were optimistic, but with these reviews, it's hard to imagine the film drawing in repeat viewers. And if it doesn't perform well during its opening weeks, it'll likely be shuffled onto Disney Plus before Christmas, which is basically an admission of defeat. Now, this also shows when you prioritize speed over quality, and Bob Iger should know better, but Disney under Bob Iger needs serious, wake-up call. Now, the company has lost its way, and it's no longer about creating magical stories that resonate with audiences. It's about churning out content to fill a schedule, and that's not the Disney that we fell in love with in the first place. Bob Iger has an opportunity here to course correct, but he needs to act fast. He needs to bring it back the storytellers, the dreamers, the people who made Disney a cultural powerhouse that it used to be. But you know what? Until that happens, we're just going to keep seeing more disasters like Moana 2. So, have you seen Moana 2? What do you think about Moana 2? And also, do you think that Bob Iger and Disney dropped the ball, or am I being too harsh? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have for this particular topic. If you enjoy what I shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, share the video far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.